LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Natasha Devon.
It is 3 minutes after 8, and in this final hour of the programme, I want to turn our attention to dads and fatherhood. It is Father's Day tomorrow, as I'm hoping that doesn't come as a shock to anyone, and they're going to have to desperately run to the petrol station to get a last-minute card. And I really want to examine the way that fatherhood has changed, because we know that definitions of masculinity and what it means to be a man in the modern world is quite a fluid concept right now. So I thought it'd be really interesting to ask you, if you are a dad, how is the way that you parent your children different from the way that you were parented by your dad? I was doing some research before I came on air today, and I found a blog on exactly this subject, and some of the dads that contributed said that they were doing discipline differently, that their dad was a bit of an authoritarian, kind of going, well, because I said so, and that they made more of an effort to explain to their children why certain rules were in place, trying not to be so quick to anger, not wanting to induce fear in their children. One dad said he was talking more to his kids about their past and trying to give them a sense of legacy and a heritage. So talking about his life growing up and what his grandparents and their great-grandparents were like, etc. And then one dad said he just wanted to be more present. He wanted to be involved in his children's day-to-day lives. He felt that his father was quite absent and a kind of peripheral influence, and he wanted to be there, around the dinner table, asking his kids about their day. Those are just some examples of the kinds of things you might say. Of course, you can say whatever you want. It's your life, your experiences that I'm interested in. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. I don't want to exclude anyone. So if you are a mother or somebody who lives with a dad and you are watching that dad parent in a way that strikes you as different from previous generations, you can call me and share your observations. 0345 6060 973. I also want to talk about parental leave for fathers and second parents. Now, at the moment in the UK, we have some of the least generous paternity leave in the whole of Europe. Fathers get 2 weeks statutory leave on £172 per week. According to new research, almost a third of fathers said they took no paternity leave at all after their most recent child was born, and almost half said that they returned to work early because they couldn't afford not to. The Centre for Progressive Policy said paternity leave could be, or should be, 6 weeks paid at 90% of the father's or the second parent's income. And this would match the minimum that mothers are entitled to in the first 6 weeks of maternity leave. So I wanted to ask you, if you had been given 6 weeks of paid parental leave as a father or a second parent on 90% of your income, what difference would that have made to your life and to your child's life? 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. We're joined now by Han-Son Lee, who is founder of DaddiLife, the parenting website for dads. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. In terms of the experiences of the people that contribute to your website, what are they telling you about how the role of dads is changing?
Good evening, Natasha. Yeah, thanks for having me on. So DaddiLife has been going there for 7 years, and during that time, what we've seen very much is what you highlighted before your introduction, which is there has been a tremendous generational shift, really, when it comes to fatherhood, both at home and at work. And we've seen and heard from thousands of dads in that time about the roles that they're taking increasingly at home in terms of being a more active and present day-to-day parent. But I think one barrier that we still see a lot is that societal norms of fatherhood can still be pretty stuck in the dark ages still, to be honest with you. And I think it's about time that we do address paternity leave as a really important trigger of change to come.
I mean, I remember reading a piece, I think it was in the Times a few years ago now, that was talking about Sweden when they parents get a combined 480 days of parental leave and it's compulsory to take at least 90 days each, and they're paid 78% of their salary. And this piece was talking about how that had literally changed the definition of masculinity in Sweden, that almost if you didn't roll your sleeves up and change nappies, you weren't considered to be a real man over there. Could you see something similar happening in the UK if we changed the paternity leave?
Well, Sweden, and in fact the Nordics as a whole, are very much standalone as the icons, really, in terms of paternity leave. So as you said, they have 18 months that's shared, and there's a big proportion of that that's ring-fenced. That has seen tremendous benefits, not just for fathers and mothers, but for families as a whole. And culturally, how families are considered in family life right across the Nordics, it certainly has a lot of learnings. I think to be balanced, though, it's fair to say that they have a higher taxation rate that supports that, of up to 50%. But I think, what we've seen here in terms of the latest research, and I was lucky enough to host the launch of this report actually earlier this week, is that it's been 20 years, in fact, since the current statutory leave pay of £172.48 has been introduced. And over that time, since 2003, as you mentioned before, it has become the least generous right across the UK. And where we're seeing a much greater generational shift, I think the impact of having 6 weeks and 90% paid would have a tremendous benefit, not just on families across the UK, not just as a good thing to do, but actually economically as well. The CPP have projected as much as 23 billion that can in fact be added to the UK economy because of it.
And I'm interested in what this research has said about the UK economic output. Apparently, increasing parental leaves for dads could increase the economic output by 23 billion. And that, I can completely see how that could be the case. But initially, that feels quite counterintuitive, because presumably dads would be spending longer away from the workplace. And as you say, that would have to be subsidised in some way. So can you give us any insight as to how that works?
Absolutely. So what we've seen is that countries with more than 6 weeks of paid paternity leave have a 4% smaller gender wage gap, and in fact a 3.7% smaller workforce participation gap. And so that's been modelled to be a £23 billion increase in the UK economy. But I think even more than that, the time that fathers have then to bond with their children, and contributing as well to a mother's readiness to go back to work. And in fact, the same research has showed that 65% of mothers with children under 12 have actually said that increasing paternity leave would have actually directly impacted their own readiness to work. So this is absolutely about dads returning to work, but it's about ensuring that we've got the right conditions for modern day families as a whole to thrive.
It's interesting because obviously when you first look at these types of statistics about paternity leave versus maternity leave, your first thought is that's sexist and it negatively affects fathers because, as you say, they have less time to bond with their children. But it's also sexist in the sense that for women, it impairs their ability to return to work and just makes the whole kind of, I guess, home-work balance less even within heterosexual relationships.
Absolutely right. And in fact, it's so interesting because 63, so almost 2/3 of dads don't feel themselves actually mentally ready to return to work after only 2 weeks. And as you mentioned before, there is such a high number of dads who actually don't get any provision of leave at all because they don't fall into either the current bracket of that or they simply can't afford to because of financial hardship. So this is absolutely about making sure that we've got not just an equal playing field, but I think the right conditions to ensure that we are looking at modern day family through the lens of what real thriving looks like, feels like, and ultimately contributes to through our economy. And I think how we as a country want to be defined in terms of family success.
Hans Sonley, thank you so much, founder of DaddiLife, the parenting website for dads. So just a reminder of the questions that I'm asking you this hour. I'm hoping that we can have one of those conversations